Hello everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Bird Nerds. I'm Mariam.
Hi, I'm Adil.
This week we have something else in store for you. It's about birds, but not really about birds. What say, Adil?
Yes, today we take a different road
Okay.
and we'll indulge you in the art of bird watching and share our experiences and hope to elevate you spiritually. But actually, let's leave that to the gurus.
Yes, absolutely. I agree on that part. But we will provide you with all the essentials which will set you off on the right foot for bird watching. When you want to start bird watching, what do you think is the most essential thing?
Well, for me, I think curiosity and interest would be the first thing that come to my mind because basic general interest in a subject is what brings out the hobby or someone takes it up as a career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Correct. That fire in the belly is absolutely essential. And that's true for bird watching as well.
And once the motivation is there, I think if you go into the field, two important things that we need to have is our two important senses, which is one is the sight and the other is the sound.
Okay.
And more than sight, just the sound which is important because 60 to 80% of the time we hear a bird, but we don't actually see it. So it's important to listen and be aware of our surroundings.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. So Adil, tell me, how did it start for you? When did you start developing an interest in bird watching?
Well, it's a childhood thing. When you're small and then you explore your neighborhood gardens or when I used to take a walk in my surroundings. So I used to observe the birds and my mom was quite interested in birds. So she used to share the names and discuss the kind of sounds the birds make. That's how I think I got into it. And as time flew and I started exploring and we started exploring places. So the first thing in the morning which we used to do was take a cup of tea and then head out, try to see what all is there in the neighborhood. And generally our destinations were mostly hill stations and places which are green. So I think that's how it all started for me. What about you, Mariam?
Before we jump on to what sparked my interest, I think you also did a couple of courses and you invested in some gear when you started getting serious about it. So tell us about that as well.
Well, gradually, yes, as time flew and the interest built up. So I took up courses. One was with BNHS and the other was with INHER.
Okay.
So these were basic courses in ornithology. Whatever I could get, I grabbed onto it and gave my full into it. And after that, I think I invested in a pair of binoculars. I used to only carry a camera before that. So binoculars changed the whole perspective and the detail which was missing in the field. When you only have a camera, you actually, are busy clicking. But when you have a pair of binoculars, you start observing. So that's the change.
Don't worry, we'll also give you some tips on how to select the perfect binoculars for bird watching a little later. Now coming back to your question, how did my interest start in bird watching?
Yeah.
It did start pretty late in life, maybe in the past decade or so. As a child, I did not know the names of the birds, but yeah, I was interested in what birds visited our garden during which season, but I was not very much aware about their names or anything else. But yeah, as I started traveling with you and then observing what was happening around us in the wild, on forest trails, on mountains or on any other trips. So that made me curious and I developed an interest in knowing more about birds and identifying them better and also sometimes photographing them. I'm not that good, but yeah, I try my best.
It's a kind of a relaxing and feel good experience.
Yes,
Would
exactly.
you not say?
Exactly. And the best thing is you can take up bird watching anywhere. You don't need to obviously serious bird watchers, they dedicate their trips only to bird watching. But if you are a casual bird watcher, if you are just out with your family or on a weekend trip, you can spare a day or spare an hour or two of your day in the morning or in the evening and just
Basically anyone who is in the outdoors or someone who takes a morning walk,
Exactly.
or someone who just loves nature and likes to be out exploring the wild, or your urban places, birds are everywhere.
Exactly. If you look at it, it is the easiest form of wildlife watching. As you said, birds are everywhere,
Yeah.
and this hobby can be taken up by any person of any age, any profession, any education.
Yeah, there is no
background. There is
limitation.
no limitation. So yeah.
So, wasn't there some facts you wanted to share about the pandemic? If I'm not
Yeah,
wrong?
right. I read some very interesting facts that especially during the pandemic, bird watching gained a lot of popularity. It was probably because people were restricted to their homes and could not move out, so they could just observe nature and bird activity from their balconies, from their windows, or when they were taking walks in their neighborhood parks. And probably everything else was quiet. The traffic noises were not there. Human activity was not that much. Bird behavior and bird sounds and bird activity maybe became more prominent, more conspicuous. So that is the reason it grew. And I think it has
the bird
still
feed sales also had increased, I believe,
yes,
in North America.
Yeah,
say
right.
by up to 50% or so.
Right. So bird feed and the backyard bird feeder sales had increased about 50% in North America. So yeah, pretty promising and also there was one more interesting thing that every year there is a global big day. Adil will tell you a little more about it. So the number of observations in 2020, that was the peak of the pandemic. That the number of bird observations that came in on Global Big Day were 2.1 million from all over the world, and that was a record number of observations for any Global Big Day.
Basically, Global Big Day, according to me, is a movement.
Okay.
It is organized by eBird. We'll tell our audience a little later, maybe in the next episode, about what eBird is. But it was organized by eBird and its partners across the world. The Indian partner is Bird Count India. So, Global Big Day is observed on World Migratory Bird Day, which is organized by United Nations Environment Program. It is observed in May and October, but Global Big Day happens in second week of May, second Saturday of May. Basically, what one has to do is contribute a checklist of birds one observes during the day.
Okay.
And these observations, they, once compiled, they pile up, and it becomes a huge amount of data collected, which once analyzed would give us a lot of information about the bird movement and other facts, other interesting facts as well.
Very interesting. It's a tool that one must absolutely explore, but yeah, more about that later. Alright, so now that we have spoken a lot about how good bird watching is, how beneficial it is, how fun it is,
and the world events,
let's start at the very beginning, as in how do you start, how do you get better at identifying a bird? What are the things that you need to look out for?
Bird watching is a science, I would say, and in order to know what you're looking at, there are ways of identifying a bird. As a birding friend once gave me an abbreviation, GISS, General Identification of Bird based on size and shape. So first important thing is, what is the size of the bird? Now, easy way to understand the size of a bird is to categorize it based on the common birds that you know. So the smallest being sparrow, then the next one is a bulbul, then you go on to a myna, then there's the pigeon, the crow, and a kite. So everything can be categorized under these species. So a bird which you observe in the field, let's say a pipit. A pipit would be a sparrow-sized bird or a sparrow plus size bird.
Okay.
So that's how you categorize it. Then the color is important. What kind of color, what kind of pattern it had. Alright.
Okay.
Now shape is also important. So did it have a short tail?
Okay.
Was there a long tail? Was there a forked tail? Was there a wire in the tail?
Okay.
Was the wire in the central tail feathers, or were the wires on the external feathers? The shape of the wing, it can be pointed, it can be rounded. Are the wings, when they're in closed form, touching the tail tips, or they stop at the rump? or they are longer than the tail. But most important is the kind of bill the bird has and the kind of feet the bird has.
Okay.
So the shape of the bill also helps us identify the species of the bird, but also the kind of food one consumes. So let's take two examples. One is the sparrow. Sparrow has a pointed, conical, bulky bill. So it tells us that the bird is granivore, feeding on seeds and grains, and the bill is so powerful enough that it can chip off any kind of seed,
Okay.
especially small seeds we are talking about.
Right.
So it's a grass bird. It's also an urban bird, but in general, any bird which has a conical bill, which is in the shape of a sparrow, would mostly be a granivore bird. Then let's take an example of the sunbird or hummingbird. In case of the Americas, they have sunbirds have long down curved bills, which are very narrow as well. So they can easily, take the bill into a flower, and so they are nectarivores.
Right.
They suck the nectar out. They also have tongues which help them in the whole process. Now let's look at a crow. Another example I would like to take. It has a very large bill and a thick bill, but nothing more specific. It's a generalist bill, I would say. So its diet is variety. So it can even consume nectar. It might even consume a dead rat.
Right.
It's a scavenger, a carrion bird, in fact, I would say. So the shape of the bill, like I said, is important. Then the feet. Now, say a bird of prey, like an osprey or a kite, they have talons. So that means they are meant to grab their prey. That's one thing. Now there are perching birds who only use their feet to perch on surfaces. So there won't be much adaptation in that.
Just to have a grip on what they are perched on.
So basically the point being that the shape helps us understand what kind of bird we see. So one is the size that helps us categorize where to place the bird. The color again. Another important thing is where did you see the bird?
Exactly.
So was it on the ground? Was it a ground feeding bird? Was it on a shrub? Was it in a wetland? Was it a water bird? Was it in the mid canopy? Was it on the top of a tree? All these also help us categorize the kind of bird they are. Again, the behavior of the bird is also important. So, let me give an example. Like a flycatcher would be sitting somewhere in the midsection, and then it would find a prey, attack, and come back to the same perch. So, you might see the bird from very far, and you may know that's a flycatcher. Also, the size would be important. You might see a crow-sized bird and won't be a flycatcher.
Yes.
So that's again important. Again, like I said, habitat is important, but the geolocation also, the geographical location is also important. So what happens is, like sunbird and hummingbird is a good example. Why don't you elaborate on this?
Yes, exactly. So before that, you would have noticed that during our podcast, we always describe the bill in a lot of detail. So that is the reason, because we want you to identify and be careful about the shape of the bill whenever you see a bird in its natural habitat. So keep listening to our episodes and you will get to know more about how the bills of each birds are shaped. Coming back to that example that you were talking about, sunbird and hummingbird. So like on the face of it, a sunbird and a hummingbird may seem alike, and they have similar kind of bill, and they have similar activity pattern, because they will be hovering around flowers for nectar. But it is important to note that if you spot such kind of a bird in India, you cannot. So anyone unaware may say that it is a hummingbird. Hummingbird, because probably it is more popular or it is more photographed and all. But that is actually not true, because you don't find hummingbirds in India. They are just found in the Americas.
Correct.
So it is very important to be aware of the habitat and the geographic location when you are identifying the bird. So in India, if you see a bird shaped like a hummingbird, it will not be that, but it will be a sunbird. Just a very rough example, but
Yeah.
just to make you clear.
Coming from that point, see, how would you know about a bird? So, a field guide is very important.
Exactly.
So, a field guide basically contains basic information about species of birds,
Okay.
categorized by families, and it will also have the geographical maps. So,
Right.
that help us position the bird correctly, whether we can find that bird in this place or not.
Exactly.
And also, there will be a brief description of the bird. And the best example of a book which comes to my mind is the book which is right here by Salim Ali, the Book of Indian Birds. So it's one of my favorite books, as the descriptions which you can read at leisure is amazing. So it's like you're observing the bird in the field once you read the descriptions.
Yes, absolutely. And I find it has a lot of, apart from the field, as in the pictures and the basic description and habitat of the bird, it has a lot of information about bird behavior, nesting patterns, eating patterns, and it's all in all a very good recommendation by Adil, and obviously it is by Dr. Salim Ali, who was one of the leading ornithologists of India, the Birdman of India.
He is the leading ornithologist of India.
Yeah.
I mean, any kind of work on Indian birds has been done by him. So, anyone who is doing something today is mostly revisiting and reworking on what has already been established and done. So, besides this, there are many other field guides. You can always look at the internet, whatever suits you. But this is one book that one must always refer to, as it will not cover all the species, but it's a good book to start with.
Exactly. Okay. So now, what have we covered? We have covered essentials like you should have a good set of eyes, alert ears, a handbook, and about the GISs, as in shape and size and form of the bird, habitat, location, geographic location. Then I think I want to ask is, what is the best time to go out for bird watching? I've heard, as in mostly you see, you hear a lot of morning activity, but is it always the early bird, or sometimes
Yes,
there is
it's
something
the
left for the late
early
risers
bird
also?
that catches the insect. So mornings are the best time. One is because it's a pleasant time
Yes,
for us
obviously.
and for the birds as well. And birds use songs to establish territory for courtship, and also they sing their songs to practice. So morning time the air is thin and the pollution levels drop drastically. So their songs and their calls reach far and wide. So definitely they'll be active and singing in the morning. So if you want to listen to birds, morning time.
So yeah, get up early if you want to catch that activity.
And since I mentioned earlier that 60 to 80% is audio, auditory function is important. So if you can hear the birds in the morning, you can also see them in the morning. And obviously, since the weather is great, fantastic, there is less disturbance. So they also are out feeding, looking to catch their prey. And they're very active till up to 11 o'clock. But it doesn't mean that nothing happens after 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock is an average time for India, I would say. But what happens beyond 11 is, I have seen, if I'm in a forest or in light woods, or say in urban places also, the woodpeckers come out. I have observed them to be a little late active species. But that's not a definitive. It's just my observation. And hunting parties are also active. Birds, once the morning passes away, I think they start gathering in flocks and working as a unit. And mixed hunting flocks are found. So, but then again, once the heat increases, everyone tends to settle down and rest. Like everyone likes a nice siesta.
Right.
But then the raptors are active at that time. As we've discussed in one of our podcasts also about thermals.
Exactly. So go visit that. I will plug all our episodes in between. So
basically raptors use thermals to rise up and then swoop down as well. So once the evening falls again, these resting birds are back but the evening window is very short,
Mm.
and also since it's fading light. But there are many bird species which are also active during dusk.
Exactly.
If you want to catch those species, then dusk. And there are nocturnal species also.
Mm.
So if you break the whole day, every part of the day is important.
So in the evenings, you would usually find flocks of parakeets or mynas making a lot of noise and going back to their roosting site. So that is a pretty common sight in urban spaces, I would say.
Yeah.
So all
Thousands
in all,
of birds
yeah,
can be seen
exactly.
heading back.
Right.
You remember the cormorants that we see, especially they take the trail which is right above a stream or a river.
True. So cormorants we will talk about when we talk about water birds. So yeah, hang on with
Coming
us.
up.
Coming up next. All right. So all in all, lot to do throughout the day. So don't get disheartened if you don't get up early on a particular day. All right. So we know about what time of day is ideal, and now I want to talk about seasons. How does seasonal variation impact bird activity or the number of the or type of birds that you see? So from what I understand and what we have talked about in our previous episode when we were talking about urban birds and garden birds is that spring and summer, these birds are in breeding mode. So their calls would be sweeter. They would be more vocal and eloquent. You will hear them more often.
Right.
Their plumage will be brighter. For example, the sunbirds, and they would be in breeding plumage and in their best dressed clothes. So that is how spring and summer rolls out. And then I would like to ask you about how monsoons affect bird activity. But in winters, again, you would find a lot of birds coming in from other parts of the world, migratory birds coming in because it's quite cold out there and it's relatively warmer in India. So you would see new species of birds in your neighborhood.
Which you don't see throughout the year.
You don't see usually throughout the year. So yeah, that is my basic understanding. If you wish to elaborate.
You're absolutely correct. Like spring and summer is definitely a good time to observe bird activity. Majority of the birds are in breeding. And like for monsoon, what happens is monsoon in India means it is the time when everything is sprouting. Life is fresh. Life gets a new start. So basically insects and food supply is there.
Right.
So by that time, the mating has already happened, courtship has happened in summer and spring. By this time, the eggs would have been laid and the eggs have hatched now.
Yeah.
So the young ones are out and they need a lot of protein. So monsoons bring that source of food. That's what happens then. And then again after monsoons, autumn comes, dryness as a thing happens and food supply reduces comparatively. So by then all the birds, majority birds are done with their breeding cycles.
Okay.
So that is there. And again by winter time what happens, like you mentioned, migratory birds are here because they are coming from colder places or higher altitude places where food supply is even more sparse. So then we see an influx of thousands of birds of variety, many species.
Right.
So winters is a great activity time. What happens in winters is many predator birds like raptors, that is when they start breeding. Because for them, smaller birds are a source of food and that supply increases in winter. So then raptors turn to reproduce.
And if you have any serious bird watching friends, you will find them the most active during winters, traveling here and there just in search of migratory birds. So,
yes, a lot of vagrants also come. We'll talk about vagrants some other time.
So Adil, you were mentioning about binoculars and how they are a very important piece of equipment in a bird watcher's kit. Would you like to provide us with some recommendations, as in terms of specifications, how one should choose a good set of binoculars for bird watching?
Well, yes, binoculars, like I mentioned, are very important. And I would go with the 8x magnification binoculars for bird watching.
Okay.
There are many magnification levels which are available, depending on what one is looking to. Like butterfly watch is also another thing. So for bird watching, 8x or 10x is what the magnification should be.
All right.
But there is another important factor, which is the diameter of the objective lens, which is also specified. So whenever you see a binoculars, it will have a specification like 8x42 or 10x50. So that 50 mm or 42 mm is the diameter of the objective lens. The objective lens is important because it controls the amount of light that comes in.
Okay.
So if this factor, if you divide the diameter by the magnification factor, say 40 by 8 is 5. It should always be 5. 5 is ideal so that the balance is there between the magnification and the amount of light which comes in. So 10x is also good if the birds are very far, like especially it happens with water birds. But then 10 by 50 it should ideally be. If it is say 10x and 40 mm diameter of the objective lens, then the amount of light reduces, and as the light fades, the light as in the daylight fades, then visibility of the subject also reduces in the binoculars. And another thing is, if you are observing species for a long time, say 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes using an 8x magnification, it's quite easy. If the magnification increases, it also strains your eyes. So you might not be able to use the binoculars as much if the magnification increases. So that's my 2 bits about binoculars.
Got it. Thank you. So, and in case you have any other doubts and you're not clear about the specifications, you can drop in comments or a message on our Instagram, and we'll try our best to help you out. Alright, so I think we have covered most of the essentials, and I would also like to say that if you're just starting out, carrying a notebook and a pen, or if you take notes digitally, a phone but on silent is also a good idea. So you can take notes about what time of day were you going for bird watching, which birds did you observe, as in if you were not able to identify, then the shape and size, the bill, all that information can be noted down. And
True. It's most important if you want to, progress as a bird watcher.
Yes.
If you just like to observe nature, then a pair of binoculars is enough.
Yes.
But if you take notes, you will always remember and you can refer back to, which season or which month you spotted that bird and when next you spotted that bird, or what other birds were there in other seasons like winter migrants. You'll be able to create a record of it.
Exactly.
That's where eBird also comes in, but that's for some other time.
Yeah. And you can also note down how the count, as in how many of that bird species did you spot. So all these small tidbits, and some people also try and make sketches. So that is some very talented people. But yeah, if you're not
whatever
suits your
that's up to you totally.
Yeah.
But yes, observing birds in the field definitely improves your patience.
Exactly.
And also it's a relaxing thing. Unless you want to stress and strain about finding a rarity or a rare bird or a very shy bird, then it's a different thing altogether.
Yeah, that will test your patience.
Yeah. But then bird watching is a very casual thing, a relaxing thing, which people can take it to a level of their liking or inkling.
Exactly. And also, you should also keep in mind that you should be respectful of the birds. You should not go very close to them or disturb them. Always maintain a safe distance and observe them as quietly as possible and not interrupt whatever they are doing.
Correct, very true. In our excitement, one should not at all disturb the birds' activity. Let them do their business and you mind your own business.
Exactly. Right. So I think we have covered a lot of the essentials, and we'll continue in our next episode where we will talk about what really is a bird. We'll talk about the bird topography, the different parts of the bird.
The external parts of the bird which help us in field identification. Yes. A little serious things, but also we'll try to make it fun.
Yeah.
Although we are two serious people. But nobody's.
Exactly. So that will help you in identifying like two similar looking but two different birds. So it will enhance your identification skills.
If you look at our previous podcast, or basically if you hear our previous podcast, you would know how confusing two different birds can be which are similar looking as well.
Exactly.
Or even the male, female for that matter.
So yeah, do tune in to us next week as well. And yeah, till
Think
then,
we should take leave for now.
right. And you can follow us on Instagram, and our details will be there at the end of the show, and as well as in the show notes. And yeah, happy birding.
Yeah, ciao.
Make sure to follow us on our Instagram pages. You can follow me on peregrinator.in. That is peregrinator.in.
And you can follow me on Mariam's Pic Clicks. That is MARIAMS PIC as in pic, CLICKS as in clicks. You can check our show description for our social media handles if you didn't get here.
So make sure to tune in next week. Till then, happy birding.
And a happier feeling. Goodbye.